My name's Jason Schuster. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I'm the author of all the writings that these videos are based on. Each episode reimagines my work through the lens of artificial intelligence, blending human insight with digital interpretation.
So you've probably heard of dry needling, and you've almost definitely heard of acupuncture. And you might be thinking, wait a second, aren't those basically the same thing? I mean, they both use these tiny little needles to treat pain and other stuff. But under the surface, there's this incredible story of two totally different philosophies, a legal battle that went on for decades, and some really cool modern science. Okay, let's get into it.
To really get what's going on, we have to start right here. This quote just sets the stage perfectly for a conflict that pitted two major healing professions against each other for almost 40 years. We're talking about a war fought not on some battlefield, but in courtrooms and state licensing boards all across the country.
And really, it all boiled down to this one simple question. For years and years, acupuncture boards were arguing that when physical therapists used needles, they were illegally practicing acupuncture. And this is what sparked lawsuits like everywhere. So to untangle where we are today, we first have to understand the history of this professional turf war and the core arguments that were fueling the whole thing. So here's the core of the argument. It was pretty simple, really. The tool defines the trade. The thinking was, if a physical therapist is using what looks like an acupuncture needle, then they must be doing acupuncture, which, of course, they weren't licensed for. And you can see how that line of thinking just created this huge legal and professional mess. But here's where it gets really interesting. This was the counter-argument from physical therapists. They basically said that this claim actually devalues the entire acupuncture profession. It's like saying, hey, the only thing that matters is the needle in your hand, not the thousands of hours of specialized training in traditional Chinese medicine that an acupuncturist goes through. Okay, so that whole legal fight really forces us to look at the fundamental difference here. They might use a similar tool, but as you're about to see, they are operating from two completely different universes of thought. Yeah, and this chart right here, it lays it all out perfectly. On one hand, you've got traditional Chinese acupuncture. It's all based on this ancient system of energy channels, or meridians, and the goal is to balance the body's qi. Then you've got dry needling, which is coming from a totally different place. It's a modern practice rooted in Western anatomy, looking for specific problems like muscle trigger points. They're just two very, very different maps for the exact same body. And this quote just nails the argument from the dry needling side. The whole idea is that, of course, multiple professions can treat the same area of the body. They just do it through the lens of their own unique training. Think about it. A dentist and a plastic surgeon both work on your face, right? But nobody's arguing they're doing the same job. So if one is about ancient energy maps and the other is about modern anatomy, where do they meet? Where's the common ground? Well, a lot of scientists and practitioners now believe the answer lies in something both of them are influencing, whether they mean to or not: the nervous system. This is basically your body's automatic pilot. It's the stuff that just happens. You don't think about breathing, right? Or your heart beating? That's the ANS at work. And it's becoming pretty clear that this system is the key to understanding why putting a tiny needle in just the right spot can have such massive effects. And the ANS basically has two modes, and they're polar opposites. You've got the sympathetic system, that's your gas pedal. It's your fight or flight response that gets you all revved up for action. And then you have the parasympathetic system, which is your brake pedal. That's your rest and digest mode that calms you down and helps you recover. Just think of it like a seesaw. And a healthy person, it stays pretty balanced. But the problem is, in our crazy modern lives, with all the stress and chronic pain, that fight or flight side of the seesaw can get stuck in the on position. So a big goal of therapies like needling is to push the other side of that seesaw down, to force the whole system back into balance. So how do you hit the brakes? How do you activate that rest and digest mode? Well, it turns out the body has a kind of master switch. One single nerve, the vagus nerve, is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the parasympathetic system. In fact, a recent meta-analysis found that this one nerve contains a staggering 75% of all the calm down fibers in your entire body. That's huge. Okay, so this is where it gets really wild. Why are we talking about the ear? Because it's one of the only spots on your entire body where a branch of this mega nerve comes close enough to the skin that you can actually stimulate it with a needle. This means needling the ear is like finding a direct access port to the body's main calming system. And that's a discovery made through modern anatomy, not by looking at ancient maps. This is all great in theory, but what does this modern, nervous system first approach actually look like in the real world? For that, let's take a look at the big leagues, pro sports. So meet Shinichiro Fukuda. He's an athletic trainer and a licensed acupuncturist for a Major League Baseball team. He's working on elite pitchers with multi-million-dollar arms, and one of his primary tools for keeping them healthy and on the field is needling. And just listen to his philosophy here. He's not just trying to fix a sore elbow. He sees the whole athlete as being perpetually stuck in fight or flight mode. And he says his number one job is to use needles to flip that switch and push their entire body into that rest and digest state so they can actually recover. And one of the ways he does this is with a classic protocol called the 4 gates, using points on the hands and feet. But what's so cool is his reasoning. He's using this ancient recipe, but for a very modern purpose, to calm the entire system down before he even gets to the local problem in the shoulder or elbow. And they had the data to prove it worked. One of his pitchers couldn't sleep after games, just totally wired. But on the nights Fukuda did the needling, his Whoop wearable device showed his sleep quality, which is a great measure of nervous system recovery, just skyrocketed. You can't really argue with that data. Okay, so let's bring it all home. We've got this long history of conflict, 2 different ways of thinking. How did this whole war finally get resolved? Well, the big breakthrough finally came in 2020, and it wasn't a dramatic court case that ended it. It was something, well, kind of boring but super important: medical billing codes. The American Medical Association and Medicare created specific codes just for dry needling that officially recognized it as its own thing, separate from acupuncture. That one administrative change effectively ended the legal war, and states that had banned the practice started to change their laws. And really, this is what it's all about. With those legal lines finally drawn, the focus has shifted away from protecting professional territory and back to what actually matters: helping patients. The more skilled people there are out there safely using needles, no matter what philosophy they come from, the more people are going to get the help they need. So that leaves us with this final, really important question. We have this ancient tradition built on thousands of years of human observation, and we have this modern practice built on cutting-edge science. Now that the war is over, the real opportunity begins to see how these 2 powerful approaches can learn from each other to create even better ways to help us all heal.